Operation Rheinübung officially got underway at 11:30 a.m. on the 18th of May, when the Bismarck weighed anchor and left the wharf at Gotenhafen. At noon the previous day, liberty had been cancelled, providing an indication to members of the ship's company that their sailing was imminent. As Bismarck left the wharf, the ship's band arranged on the upper deck struck up Musi Den, a folk song traditionally played since the days of the Imperial German Navy when large warships departed on long cruises. Despite the fanfare of the ship's band on the upper deck playing as the ship departed the wharf, Bismarck did not immediately put to sea. Rather, the ship proceeded out to the roadstead in view of Gotenhafen, where anchor was dropped. Tons of provisions and fuel still needed to be taken on board. The fueling of the ship had almost been completed when the refueling line ruptured, leaving 200 tons of fuel oil to be pumped on board. The fueling operation was called off to allow the mess to be cleaned up. 7,200 tons out of the ship's total capacity of 7,400 tons of fuel had been loaded. It was a somewhat inauspicious start to the operation, although it was a minor issue at the time. Prior to Bismarck, at 12 minutes past 11 that morning, Prinz Eugen had departed the wharf at Gotenhafen with the aid of tugs and had proceeded out into the deeper water of the roadstead to take on clean water for her boilers. At 4:40 p.m., while Bismarck was provisioning, she weighed anchor and sailed a short distance out of the harbour to take on fuel, where 3,232 tons, 18 tons short of her maximum capacity of 3,250, was taken on board. Prinz Eugen weighed anchor one final time at 18 minutes past 9 that evening and departed Gotenhafen, setting a course west through the Baltic for the island of Rügen. With the clean-up operation having been completed, at 2 a.m. on the 19th of May, Bismarck departed Gotenhafen and headed west into the Baltic. The passage west through the Baltic was uneventful, made under a cloudy sky with a moderate wind and seas. Off Cape Arcona, the northern tip of Rügen, Bismarck rendezvoused with the Prinz Eugen. Lindemann now took the opportunity to address the crew, informing them that they were to head out into the North Atlantic, where their objective was to raid the supply lines to Britain. In order to preserve the secrecy of the task force, the commander of the Baltic Security Forces had announced that the Great Belt and Kattegat would be closed to commercial traffic during the night of the 19th and 20th of May. In contrast with the previous day, the 20th of May dawned clear and sunny. Those aboard the task force saw before them a shimmering green sea, mixed with light blue, of small swells which stretched out to the horizon. Around noon, a flight of Swedish aircraft passed the task force undetected, approximately 20 miles to the west of Vigna. The Swedish air crews immediately reported the presence of the German ships to the headquarters of the Swedish Navy in Stockholm. The seaplane carrying cruiser Gotland also received the sighting report before raising steam and leaving harbour to conduct gunnery practice off Vigna. As they continued through the Kattegat, those aboard Bismarck and Prinz Eugen were wary of the presence of the innumerable Danish and Swedish fishing boats with which they shared the waterway. At 1 p.m, the Gotland hove into view and, over a period of 2 hours, passed the task force to starboard. The commanding officer of the Gotland began to signal a sighting report to a radio centre in Göteborg, which relayed the signal until it was received in naval headquarters in Stockholm. Assuming that the presence of his ships would be reported to Stockholm by the Gotland, Lutyens ordered that a signal be made to Naval Group North. The signal stated,
"At 1300, aircraft cruiser Gotland passed in clear view. Therefore anticipate formation will be reported."
Following receiving this signal from Lutyens, the commander of Naval Group North, General Admiral Rolf Karls, attempted to restore a sense of perspective by replying,
"Given Sweden's strict neutral stance, I do not think the danger of being compromised by the Swedish warship is any greater than that posed by well-established, systematic enemy surveillance of the Baltic approaches."
Having transited the Kattegat, the task force arrived in the Skagerrak. Here Lutyens gave orders for the Bismarck and Prinz Eugen not to pass through the cleared opening of the Skagerrak minefields. This was owing to the possibility that British submarines may be lurking just beyond. Instead, Lutyens ordered a new passage through the minefields be swept, a task which took hours to complete. Meanwhile ashore, events were gathering pace. In Stockholm, the British naval attaché, Captain Henry Denham, was at his flat when the telephone rang. It was the British Embassy on the line which advised him that Colonel Roger Lund, the military attaché of the Norwegian government in exile in London and a friend of Denham's, had arrived at the embassy and needed to see him urgently. Aside from being a friend of Denham's, Lund was one of the British naval attaché's most reliable informants. Each week, Lund would take papers from Swedish naval headquarters to Denham at the British Embassy. While Lund read out the documents, Denham would make abstracts of what he thought important before Lund returned the papers. Arriving at the embassy, Denham showed Lund into his office, whereupon he was informed that 2 large German warships, along with smaller vessels and an air escort, had been sighted that afternoon off the southern coast of Sweden. The report gave no indication of the source, which was the Gotland. Not knowing the source, Denham doubted the reliability of the report. Nevertheless, he drafted a telegram to the Admiralty in London, which was classified most immediate. It stated,
"Kattegat today, the 20th of May. At 1500, 2 large warships, escorted by 3 destroyers, 5 escort vessel, 10 or 12 aircraft, passed Marstrand. Course west. 2058, the 20th of May 1941.
The secret surrounding the sailing of the Bismarck was out. While Denham's telegram was heading out across the airwaves to London, Bismarck, Prinz Eugen, and their destroyer escorts were making 27 knots, heading due west through the Kristiansand minefield. Off Kristiansand, Bismarck and Prinz Eugen were sighted by Viggo Axelsen, a young ship's chandler who worked for the Norwegian resistance. Axelsen quickly scribbled a message and had it transmitted to London. On the morning of the 21st of May, as the crews of the German ships ate breakfast, Lütjens decided to put in at Bergen in order to refuel. At the time, Lütjens had faced a choice, whether to order the ships to head to Bergen to allow Prinz Eugen and the destroyers to refuel, or to bypass Norway and to head directly for the tanker Riesenberg, which was stationed in the Arctic Circle to support the operation. Deciding that conditions were not favourable to refuel in the Arctic Circle, Lütjens ordered that a course be set for Korsfjord, near Bergen. At 9 a.m, the entrance of Korsfjord hove into view, whereupon the ships entered the fjord network around Bergen. It is worth noting that the decision was taken not to refuel Bismarck, as it was not called for in the operational orders. With pilots on board, Bismarck was guided into Grimstad Fjord, just to the south of Bergen, while Prinz Eugen was guided into Calvains Bay, to the northwest. The three destroyers, meanwhile, proceeded to Bergen. As the two ships swung at anchor, the Baltic camouflage that adorned the ships, black and white bars on the hull and superstructure, were painted over with outboard grey to try and make the ships less distinguishable in the Atlantic. While this was done, the false bow and stern was also painted over, although the false bow waves were left on the bows.
Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more updates, like and share. You can also help to support the channel at Patreon. Details are in the description box below.